Hello, friend. On today's episode of The Intentional Life, I talked to my longtime friend and brother from another mother, Mr. Dan Go. I can say without reservation that Dan is one of the kindest, most genuine men that I've ever met. Professionally, he's been a fitness expert for the last 10 years, helping people with their body and their mindset. And in this episode, we deep dive into the importance of self-reflection, how to make your habits stick, the necessity of being strategic about what messages and people you allow into your life, and generally how to be the best person overall. We also dig into my writing process. I share about how I have built the size of the business that I have in a relatively short amount of time, and the specifics of what a normal workday looks like for me. So without further ado, here's my interview with Dan Go. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, I'm Jordan Gray, and this is the Intentional Life video series. From sex, relationships, communication, and character development, to health, creativity, and self-love, The Intentional Life is your go-to source for powerful, actionable advice from amazing, world-changing people. All right, welcome everyone back to the Intentional Life video series. Today I have an amazing guest who I've had on my radar as someone I've wanted to be on the show for well over a year now. Mr. Dan Go, everybody. Woo!
What's up? What's up? Thank you. Thank you.
Dad, so
Podcast
good.
world.
So good to have you here. So for quick context before we get into who you are, I think I've known you for like 5.5 years now.
Yeah.
5 years or so, which is crazy. So Dan and I are both in a semi-underground, secretive mastermind group that has a large online presence, but we mainly meet face-to-face. And within seconds of meeting Dan offline, I immediately gravitated towards his heart and his character. And I was like, this is a good dude that I want to get to know. And we became fast friends. And we've temporarily lived together in multiple cities in Vancouver and Toronto. And I think we've done a couple masterminds together as well. But yeah, Dan's just a good dude who I want to expose his mind and way of being to more people in the world. So this is Dan. Dan, who are you? What are you about in the world? What do you want to say about yourself?
Well, the very first question, like, who are you? I feel like that's the most vast question in the entire universe, and I can't even answer that. I'm going along this line of like not identifying with being anything right now. And maybe I'll stick with that for the rest of my life, but who knows? But yeah, I find that identifying with things like, let's just say being, I'm a fitness guy or whatever, or I'm a
handsome guy.
I'm a handsome guy or whatever it is. That's severely limiting. So I'm just gonna say that I am who I am. I guess everyone will feel the energy when they hear us talk. Funny thing is that I was just at a party of a mutual friend of ours, Gio. Mm-hmm. He's actually doing the summit this year in September. Are you going? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't have plans to yet, but out of any summit, it is the most on my radar. So potentially.
Please come, because that means you'll be in Toronto.
True.
And yeah, I was actually at one of his parties, really just like on, I think it was like Friday. And some dude, I was talking to a couple of the guys in the secret society of ours, and some guy just comes up to us. He's like, "Yeah, I've heard of this I've heard of this like secret boy society that you guys are in." And then I was just like, "Yeah, well, I can't talk about it." So that was kind of funny. And actually, with me and you actually opened up your house to me on the very first trip that I took to Whistler.
Right.
I stayed with you. You were there for some business drama that happened, I remember, and it was amazing that you guys like helped me work through it, and that was like my first kind of foray into hanging around people like Jordan Gray. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I can say is I own a fitness business right now. I have a brick and mortar gym business. It's doing amazingly well. I'm incredibly proud of it. It's called Go Girl Transformation, and we help women get into fantastic, amazing shape. And we also try to help them live life in a very positive manner. I write about fitness, but I also write about life as well. And and I am just I'm just into I'm into all of the cool, amazing things that is like happening in the world right now. Because we are living in probably the most amazing time to ever be alive right now, and there's so many things that are happening. I can't read enough about them. So yes, yeah, it's a long-winded answer to your intro.
Perfect answer.
Yeah,
There's two things that come to mind when you paint that broad stroke brush of your life. One is that something that I really appreciate about your business and about your brand and about ultimately who you are as a person, which is why your essence is kind of bled into the things you've done, is I experience you two ways. One is that you're very a mindset first person. I've never seen, whether I've seen you, leading one of your Go Girl transformation workshops in person, or just the way you talk about your clients' successes or talk about your own progress. It's an inside out approach. And
yeah,
the second piece, which, highly correlates, is that you're one of the, if you were to have any loose label as a fitness person, I think you have one of the healthiest mindsets in relationship to health and your body and the bodies of your clients. Like that it's never been, here's how to, get like beach ready or get super jacked, or
yeah,
I don't know, just I see you
yeah,
doing it right compared to how I think there's a lot of very damaging or limiting ways that people talk about fitness or speak about their bodies or market. And yeah, I feel like that's one big piece of overlap that I've seen between you and I, and therefore
yeah,
as extensions of us, our businesses, that we we're in industries that have a high degree of like shadiness or things that we could take or leave, preferably leave, but we're in there kind of like inserting our like 1% wedge of love into like the pie chart of a lot of poison or uh, damaging bullshit.
yeah, yeah. The thing is that the bad most of the time outweighs the good. So when we see like the scammy stuff, and when we see things that shouldn't necessarily be said, those things outweigh a lot of the good that's happening. Yeah, you're totally right in terms of my outlook of things is that if you want to change something on the outside, whether that be your body, your business, your relationships, it all starts with what the hell is going on inside of you. And I think what happens with a lot of people trying to transform any part of their life, uh, a lot of it comes from actually there's a big lack of self-awareness that they take into these transformations, and they may be able to do the actions necessary to get themselves to lose like 20 pounds or get that dream girl or be in the business of their dreams, whatever it is, but they lack the awareness to keep these things. And if you don't have the inner if you haven't done like the inner work while you were actually doing the outer work, then essentially you're not going to be able to hold the outer results that you're trying to achieve in the first place. Um, Something simple, just as like journaling on a daily basis. When I tell people this, like 99% of the time, I get the whole thing like I'm too busy and I don't have enough time for this. And I think when it comes to me, it's like I cannot afford to talk to myself. I cannot afford to not check in with myself on a daily basis because I'm always in flux and everyone's in flux and everyone is changing at a rapid pace. If you're not stopping to check in with yourself on a regular basis, then essentially you're kind of going along the rat race with blinders on, and you don't have your peripherals kind of like out there and being aware of everything from the outside to the inside of what's going on with you. So, man, I find that you need to build tools to get the things that you want. Because if you get the things that you want and you don't have the tools, then you're not going to keep them. And that's just it.
Yeah, words of wisdom, and I can directly attest to consistency of Dan being a hardcore journaler. Every city that I've lived in with you, that's
Yeah.
been like, it's very apparent that certain seed habits in your life are non-negotiable, that you sweat regularly, that you journal daily, that you
Yeah.
eat clean. These are just,
Yeah.
they're non-negotiable staples that just are embedded in your DNA.
Yes, and these non-negotiables, or what you can call like just habits and the things that you do on an everyday basis, they add up like compound interest. And every single time that you do them, you may not notice like the effect immediately, but at over time, they all add up. So right now, at this very moment, I feel like I'm in close to the best physical shape that I've ever been in. And I'm 37 years old. Usually after your 30s, everybody's thinking that things should slow down. I actually feel like I'm just about to hit another peak.
Mm-hmm.
Things like journaling, it really develops that pause between stimulus and response, because a lot of times when we react to like certain things, or I'm in a relationship right now, so when I react to certain things with Linda, with my girlfriend, I can really kind of stop, slow down, and be like, what what's happening right now? Where is this coming from? Why am I feeling in this way? Is this because of what she's doing, or is this because of something that's inherent inside of me that's happening at this very moment, and it's just coming out in this, like, whether it be like, anger, humiliation, like, whatever it is. And a lot of that comes from knowing your own little ticks, and you can't know your own little ticks unless you're willing to actually like face them head on. Um, yeah, I find that, okay, so I actually find that a lot of people compensate, overcompensate in a lot of areas in their lives because of the fact that they don't want to face these things, right? So we have like high performing entrepreneurs who put 110% into their businesses. But then if you look at the rest of their lives, whether it be relationship, physical, their social aspect, having actual friends, a lot of that lacks because of the fact that they basically put all of their self-worth and identification on building this greatest business, or building the most amazing body, or dating the top 10 girls, or whatever it is. And yeah, I feel like if you understand exactly like what you want, why you want it, and inherently know that this is what is individual to you and not like what everyone else thinks that you want, then you're coming from a place where every single decision that you make, you can be extremely confident in it, and you don't have to second guess yourself, because it is essentially a decision based on your own morals, own values, and the own things that you want. And we all want totally different things. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a bobblehead listening to you because it's so easy to agree with everything you're saying. It's like, yes, totally, which is exactly why I wanted to talk with you on this call. And
Yeah.
yeah, I truly believe that one of the greatest deep level life hacks is decide what your life is about and then guard that against every shiny object that seems sexy or that boosts your ego or that
Yeah.
will give you like external recognition and validation, and be like, no, this is what matters, and that's allowed to be enough. Like, that's it. I think that's one of the biggest things that affects anyone near like the millennial generation, is that we
Yeah.
live in the age of distraction, when there is so much there's so many options, there's so many choices, there's so many you know just forks in the road that we could take, that people just feel constantly overwhelmed, because exactly like you said, we aren't slowing down. And whether it's through meditation or journaling or any form of self-remembering, we don't slow down and go, what does my heart actually resonate with? Because until you know what your North Star is, and it doesn't necessarily mean your North Star will be the same thing for 80 years. It could be the thing that carries you for 3 years or 1 year or 6 years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
without slowing down and going, okay, what actually matters to me, then we're just up the creek without a paddle.
Well, that's like the scariest thing for a lot of people, is the fact that the things that they go for, and then they realize that once they reach like their pinnacle, or they end up becoming confused, sometimes empty, and they're like, oh God, I thought this was going to be this, but it's not. Or even still, like even if you follow a passion and you take it to the top and you're exactly where you want to be. The scariest part is understanding that there's probably going to be a big change after that happens. And you won't be able to know, like you'll still be toiling in pursuing something that is not even inherent to you anymore. And that is what we call like the golden handcuffs. And you're tied to this thing because it gives you identification, it provides you security, safety. Let's just talk about business. Like you make an incredible business, it provides you security, safety, notoriety, and then you know in your heart that that's pretty much the limit that you want to take that, and you want to go into a different direction, right? And that's the scariest thing ever. And you're not gonna know what that is until you actually get down and man, get deep about like what exactly drives you and then what drives you now. Because what drives you then and what drives you now is going to be completely different. And as you actually get to know yourself more during time, then your decisions and the things that you're going to pursue in life are going to be completely different. Uh, yeah, I actually remember. I actually read the blog post that you put up about your social circle,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I felt like that phase was like necessary, and it was the scariest phase because you basically said, I'm not going to hang around any of my friends. I'm going to put 110% into this business.
Mm-hmm.
I also felt that was also a purge as well because
Totally.
yeah, there's just some like if you
Friends
don't
come in and
really
out of your life, and sometimes you need to call the herd and go, okay, I'm upgrading, I'm shifting. Are these people around me, are they still in alignment with my deepest truth if my truth
yeah,
is changing?
exactly. And then that must have been the scariest fucking thing ever.
Yep.
And you must have, and I remember you said you felt isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then we need to feel isolated at times,
Totally.
to understand this is the type of person that I want to be in my life. This is the type of business that I'm working towards.
Yeah, it's this whole, and to directly reference what Dan's talking about, my How to Make Friends as an Adult article that I put out under a month ago or so now. But yeah, for the first 3.5, 4 years of my business, I did a big purge of my social life and just dove headfirst into creating this brand and writing a ton and getting my 1 million readers a month. And in that, there was, it's ultimately just a death and rebirth cycle. There was a death of some iterations or some elements of my former self,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to create that vacuum, we have to create that emptiness, we have to let go of the old
Yeah,
weight off our shoulders to then create
yeah,
space for, okay, nature abhors a vacuum. What are the things that then come into that space that you've created? And yeah, I think that people by and large fear endings, whether it's ending an old business, ending a relationship that's like okay,
mm,
ending friendships because, oh well, I've been friends with them for 12 years, so I probably just should be friends with them forever. I think humans are generally terrified of endings because it reminds us of our mortality. It reminds us that life is finite, that we are going to die one day, and that things do end. Even if it's just a little passion project that we're letting go of, pieces of, yeah, people will just hold on for dear life because it's familiar, it's safe, they're used to it.
everyone has to. I actually feel everyone has to die
Many
multiple
times.
multiple times,
Yeah.
and then in the process of actually killing off this whatever version of yourself or like shedding this version of yourself, another thing comes out, another thing arises. It's like when you go into a closet, you take out all your old clothes and you give them to like a Salvation Army or whatever, and inexplicably your closet ends up having new clothes, and
Yeah.
you always have to go through this like death and rebirth process in your life, and the more you can kind of be okay with the fact that you are going to die, then the more you're going to be able to take these risks and take these chances and actually follow the things that your heart is actually telling you to do, that's screaming to you. And if you don't do that, then again it's like golden handcuffs. You're staying in the nice comforter of security, and you're not living. You're essentially just like glazing, just kind of like, just strolling. That's it.
Yeah.
Not living.
Like that quote of most people die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. It's like, sure,
Yeah.
you're alive, but what are you doing with your time? This is, I got a message. I posted about this on Instagram a few days ago. I got a message from a reader a couple days ago asking about how they were starting to write online content, and they had a few dozen posts that were like written, ready to push out, but they were like, "Ugh," like they're sitting on it because releasing your art to the world can absolutely be terrifying, especially early days.
Yeah.
And she asked me, how did you get over this hump of like putting out your art to the world, especially when, she directly named that I've put out things that could very easily be seen as quite vulnerable, whether it's, deep dive articles about my breakups or my depression and suicidality, or, like everything to do with my sex life. You can, like all my childhood wounds, you can find, like, it's just my online diary. You can find everything about me on the internet. And for me, there's two things that are the most significant in that. One is that I made my love of contribution, of helping others, bigger than my ego. Like I had to let go of the fear of what will they think of me? What will my grandparents think if they read about like the dimensions of my penis in an article on the internet, versus will this help?
I know the dimensions of your penis, actually.
You know the dimensions.
Late night.
It's about this long. More like
head. Yeah, it's about past my neck.
There you go.
All right.
Just I knew if there's even one person that benefits from my story, I have to tell my stories. And the second piece being, I've just, for a long time, I've had a pretty close awareness of death. And there's always this litmus test that I use of if I'm about to put out an article or put out a video that I'm like, my fingers like shaking over the publish button. And like, oh, like this one's really extra vulnerable. The litmus test that I always use is if I got hit by a bus next week, if I, die inexplicably a few days from now, would I regret not putting this out there? And the answer is always yes. And it's so easy for me to just put it out there because my life is finite. So like, why not put out all of my gifts, all of my creations, and, as David Data says, like die empty or die as close to empty as possible, just totally used up and giving.
I would also talk to your friend and be like, okay, so what is this fear? And why are you afraid of what other people think about you? And it's not a bad question, because we're everyone feels like insecurities, that everyone feels insecure. But asking where these come from, and even diving in a little bit deeper, does this come from like shame? Because for me, one of my things was just like Asian people should not be boisterous. We should not put ourselves out there. We should not, publicly announce things, and we should be very reserved and very like,
modest and humble and hardworking.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I would even ask your friend, it's like, okay, so you could put out content and you can always face that fear, but if you're not gonna extrapolate and really dig down and just like tear into that, like, every single time that you put out content, there's always going to be that feeling, and you got to get into that feeling and find out what the fuck happened to make you feel that way. And it's
see what I told you guys about the mindset first? This is like classic Dan Go, is like, let's get to like the seed of truth that's like actually germinating in this stuff being thrown off.
Well, I was talking to my friend. My friend, and we have this amazing relationship with each other where we can actually give each other feedback, and the feedback will actually be conversated and not debated between each other. One of the things I asked him was, okay, so he has a view that he doesn't want to get married, which is cool. He doesn't want to have kids, which is cool. I asked him, okay, so where is it? Why? And where does this come from? It's not necessarily if it's the right thing or not to do. I just want to know, like, what what brought you to this particular decision? Because these are big decisions to make, and he's like 26 years old. I'm like, ooh, you don't make these types of decisions at 26. One of the things I actually asked him was like, okay, well, you know what? I mean, you are an only child. How do you think that has affected kind of like your view on, say, marriage, your view on, say, having kids? And, you know, he also had not necessarily a great mom growing up, because we've talked about this before. I was like, how do you think this has had an effect on your view on these things? Do you think it has? Because I think like when you ask people these things, when you try to get a little bit deeper, see if these past experiences has affected the decisions, then you can be like, okay, well, I can operate from an understanding and knowing of maybe this kind of influences these decisions a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you and again, it's like you want to extrapolate, you want to get deep, and you want to peep into the closets that you're not necessarily peeping into. And you don't have to do it with another person, but if you do it by yourself and you talk to yourself, then then you can find out why you decide the things that you decide, and if these things are actually good for you.
Yeah, and it's exactly the way that belief systems work like glasses in terms of they're on your eyes and they work to like clarify certain things in your vision,
Yeah.
and they also work to be forgotten about. Like you forget that you're wearing contacts, you're wearing glasses, and yeah, again, coming back to the self-remembering, the meditation, the journal, people don't slow down and take the time to dig into their own software and go, what led me to this belief? Is it mine? Is it a knee-jerk response?
Yeah.
Called reaction formation to like, is there old trauma that we just said, okay, well, in opposition to this old pain, I'm going to do this because that's how I survived in the world as a kid. And I'm just going to like hold on to that and never question it and just, look at fish not knowing that it's wet, just be surrounded by it, but completely unaware.
And also keeping into account like what comes through cognitively, right? So let's just say you hang around let's say you want to get married and you hang around a bunch of divorced women every single day of your life. Do you think that's going to have an effect on your ability to get a man that you want to marry, or your ability to find a man that you want to marry, or to have beliefs or even positive beliefs around marriage?
Yeah. And
I'm
not
not to
just
say that
divorce, but
divorce,
like
not
but
to
like
say divorce.
bitterly divorced, like men are
Yeah,
awful. Like yeah.
exactly. Or, what books and like what kinds of like I always find that whatever you're taking in cognitively always like comes out in some way, shape, or form. So if you want to know like how to be the best like husband to your wife, or if you want to be the best like boyfriend to your girlfriend, how many books on that are you actually reading? How many blogs are you actually reading on that? And quite frankly, not a lot of people actually take that stuff in cognitively.
No.
And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm just going to talk to my friends and get advice from them. But I find that when you look to improve a certain part of your life, whether it be entrepreneurially, relationship wise, or physique, I find that if you gobble in things like more cognitively, when you select specific things that you want to read and see on a daily basis, it influences your outside behavior.
Yep. Agreed.
But yeah, you won't really get that stuff from Facebook or Instagram.
No.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most common questions that I ask my like highly entrepreneurial or self-employed male and female clients is, yeah, like how many books in the last year have you read on business? And they're like, oh, like, at least like 30 or 50, like, one a week. And I ask how many books you read in relationships. And they're like, I kind of skimmed through one. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, no shit, you're coming to me for help because like this hasn't, even if you tell yourself it's been a priority, it hasn't. Because if something's been a priority, then you've actually taken action on it consistently and made it really front of mind for yourself for any period of time. And I think that people are we have all these psychological buffers, and it's so easy to bullshit ourselves and tell ourselves, yo, I'm a serious student, I'm a serious seeker in these ways. But then when the rubber hits the road, if you really reverse engineer their behavior, you're like, no, like the math doesn't add up. You're not really
Yeah.
putting any energy towards this in reality.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's I find that the if you really want to know something, you can find it and you will know about it.
Hmm.
A lot of people have, let's just say, problems with their love lives. You know, if they're deep in their relationships, they want to know how to enhance, let's just say, their sex life with their girlfriend. Well, do you really want to? Show me, right? Like what are the actions that you're taking? Sure, I mean, like going to see you, that's great. I think that's like awesome. And I've talked to you, and I have taken up your consulting services because I know it's important. But then when I look back, I'm like, okay, so how many books was I actually reading at that time to get better at this certain type of relationship thing that I'm trying to get better at?
Hmm.
And like you said, when the rubber hits the road, actions always speak more than the things that you actually talk about. You know, like show me the actions, and then I'll show you whether or not you're actually serious about the thing that you want.
Yeah,
And quite frankly, the things that they want scares the shit out of a lot of people.
totally.
They don't realize that.
Yeah, and again, I think there's a lot of denial there that they might know it emotionally, but their minds are so good at being noisy that they're like, no, no, I'm fine. That doesn't scare me. I can do that, no problem. But I'm like, but there is anxiety, there is fear here.
Yeah.
One last example, a little rant on this is I had a person message me a couple weeks ago who said, so I wrote a like deep dive article, like 5 or 6 thousand words, called "How to Make a Full Time Income from Blogging." It was my like biggest business focused post. I just felt like writing, just be like, okay, I get asked about this all the time. Here's like most of my best stuff that I like had front of mind. And I just person messaged me a couple weeks ago saying, okay, I read this post, whatever it was, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, and I've been blogging since then. And I'm like, it's been up for like almost 100 days now. And I don't know, like, it's not really like the money isn't rolling in, and I'm expecting like blah, 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 like XYZ results. And she's like, I'm thinking about quitting because like it's been this long and nothing's really happening. There's no like traction, no momentum. And I told her directly, I was like, if the thing that you state is your like life's biggest dream and it takes you less than 100 days to give up on it, then you should probably give up on it. Like if the barrier to entry for you is that insurmountable, then you may be lying to yourself. Or
Yeah.
maybe it is your dream, but you just don't have really strong entrepreneurial tendencies, and you should go get a job, because if you're already unhappy this far into it, then I mean it's only going to get harder. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's that same piece of like people saying they want something so bad. Oh, this matters so much to me, and when you audit their actions, they're just not in alignment. And yeah, same thing with the relationship example you gave of like someone only hanging out with their like single, bitter, resentful friends. Um, I had one female client who was in her late 50s when she first came to see me, and she basically started her first call with this mindset of like, yeah, there's a part of me that wants a partner. Like, I miss companionship. I miss having someone to like cuddle with, be intimate with. But all men above 40, like I don't want to like
Yeah.
I forget the exact wording, but the essence of it was she didn't want a partner because in her worldview, all men above 40 were just like children, and she didn't want to like take care of a child, like a man child. And I was like, if that's your worldview, you will have
Yeah.
all the feedback in the world to reinforce that belief. But
Yeah.
I know some like gorgeous hearted men that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s that aren't children. And I don't know, there was so many embedded assumptions, limitations in it that I was like, if you want to be right about this, I promise you'll be right for the rest of your life. If there's even like 5% of your mindset that's sick and like tired and bored of this old story, there's even that wedge of doubt of, you know what, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I am just spinning my wheels in this mud, because then it lets me stay emotionally safe and it lets me not extend my heart to people and not get hurt. It's so easy to hide behind our bullshit and not
Yeah.
deploy courage in life.
And unfortunately, the bullshit is going to run your life if you let it, right? So if she has that belief system, and it's like any guy over like 40 is going to be a big child or whatever. Well, guess what? It's going to be true.
Yeah.
You're going to seek out nothing but children in your relationships, if you have an iota of belief that things could be better and that you could actually find the thing that you're looking for, then things can actually start to change. Now, when I say that with a caveat, because let's take this lady for example. And if she's watching, then hey, what's up? Um, let's take this lady for example. If she says that she wants to find like a mature man who has his shit together and who connects with her on such a deep level, and they have the same morals and values, like similar morals and values, and is willing to live their like his life with her, then if that's like the thing that she wants, she believes that it can actually be true, which I actually believe it can be true. I know it can. Then she has to ask herself, like, okay, well, what kind of person do I have to be to attract this guy? It's simple, right? But it's not. I wouldn't say a lot of people look at themselves and be like, okay, what kind of resources and what kind of strengths and what kind of things do I have to build up in myself to get these things, to make these things possible? And going back to the guy that was blogging for 100 days and was saying like, I don't know if this is like it for me kind of thing. Then I asked him, okay, so why did you want to blog in the first place? Was it for freedom? Was it because you wanted to get your words out there? Did you want people to listen to you? Well, then, I mean, or was it because you wanted to live the internet lifestyle and you wanted to live wherever you want and make money while you're like, sitting on your laptop? Two of those are intrinsic. The last one, very extrinsic, right? Mm-hmm. So if this guy asks himself, okay, so if I really want to be this, top-notch blogger like Jordan Gray is, and quite frankly, I know the amount of work that you've put into your blog and the amount of work that you put into your writing and the amount of like self-work and the amount of reading, and like it's mind-boggling the stuff that you have done on a daily basis to get you to where you are. Most people don't see that because they're like, oh, you got such a talent for writing, bro, right?
How do you magically attract that readership overnight?
Oh my God. Like they just have to ask themselves, okay, well, they have to list out maybe 5 to 10 things. And they're like, okay, what kind of person do I have to be to make sure this happens in my life? Or to have this as an opportunity, so to open myself up to the opportunity to actually have this. Yeah. Go back, get deep, and find out what drives you intrinsically, and then find out, okay, what do you have to be? What has to happen? Who do you have to be? You probably have to give up the beliefs. That's like the very first thing.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think a lot of what we're talking about right now is about taking self-responsibility, about saying, right, I can influence my life. I can do something about this. And I love the example that you gave earlier in the call about how a lot of people just have this belief that, oh, well, I'm over 30 now and my metabolism just goes to shit because apparently that's what happens to adults, I think. And it's such an easy way to then go, oh, well, if my metabolism is shit, my body's working against me, then I might as well be lazy. I might as well not walk anywhere. I might as well eat pizza for dinner most days. I might as well not go to the gym because if it's going to be, in their mind, if it's 10x harder to like get in shape, then the cards are already stacked against me and I'll just throw in the towel. It's like, what are you basing this on other than having a thing to blame to then not take responsibility, to then, have your health go into a downward spiral, and then your mind will latch onto that and go, well, see, I'm 32 now, and so of course I have belly fat because everyone just turns into a fat fuck when they're in their 30s and above, and it only gets worse. And I see that belief as just completely identical to that mindset of like, oh, if you've been in a relationship for a couple of years, your sex life has to go to shit. Or if you've been married for a year, 5 years, 7 years, 20 years, that, romance just dies. And yes, there is some transition from passionate love to companionate love where you do have like a calmer, more grounded, more kind of holistic type of love with your partner. But people saying, oh, well, we've been married for over 5 years, so we shouldn't have sex anymore. Or you can't wear lingerie for your partner because they don't even care. Like there's so many embedded assumptions, so many limiting beliefs that allow people to not take responsibility and then have the thing suffer and then use that as feedback of, see, I knew it, why bother?
People place imaginary lines on themselves. They place imaginary ceilings, and a lot of times it's adopted from parents from their parents, from what pretty much advertising and everything else is telling you.
Culture, religion, society, education. We get from all angles.
Yeah, and quite frankly, if you I always like to look at it's called survivor bias. Probably not the most healthy thing in the world, but I like to look at I like to look at the one person that actually made it happen, and I actually just want to say, hey, if this person, if they can actually be realistic and if it can be a reality for this person, then it most likely can be a reality for me. I just have to figure out, who I have to be and the actions I need to take to get there. A lot of times people will stop themselves short because actually, well, this goes way deep because people stop themselves short because of like the invisible ceiling that they place on themselves. But in reality, they're just extremely scared about getting it in the first place because they don't know what kind of changes they have to make to their lives based on this new thing that is happening, based on this new thing that they have. Even if it's like, making $1 million, like a lot of times people will not go for it because they understand that a lot of pain, a lot of failure, a lot of self work, and a lot of like just grit and determination and hard work needs to go into it. And that scares the shit out of people. And when people realize that's going to happen, then that's what makes people want to give up in the end because they realize that the road is not as straight as it was. But if only one person actually achieved what you want to achieve, get out of your own way and understand that this is still a possibility for you. And then it's up to you whether or not you actually want to pursue it. And that again goes with communicating with yourself on a regular basis. And again, we're changing day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute. The things that we take in cognitively, they change our views out there into the world. Every single day we're malleable. So if we understand that we're malleable and we can change, then why not actually do the things that we can do to make ourselves who we want to be?
I love the way you worded that. You just reminded me of this book I'm reading, A General Theory of Love by Thomas Lewis, that one of the core concepts of the book is that it's been proven in like the study around brains and neuroplasticity that we become who we love. That literally the people that we get emotionally the closest to, their being embeds, like they're embedded in our mind, in our DNA for the rest of our lives, whether we're actively partners with them or not. You could love someone, be in a close intimate relationship for 2 years, break up with someone, they could die years later and they're still a part of you. That it's like, it's written on the like stone walls of your mind forever. And yeah, it's not just relationally. This happens with the books and podcasts and videos we consume. This happens with the mentors and friends that we, choose or opt into or allow into our lives. Yeah, we're constantly being etched on by the forces that we allow into our lives.
Yeah. So maybe it's actually going back and being like, okay, so what do I read and who do I hang around on a regular basis?
Audit that fanatically.
Hard.
Like I've been, my readership and my followers know by now that like I'm kind of overly picky with all the sources that I let into my mind. Like I have the Kill Newsfeed app that takes newsfeed off my Facebook. On Instagram, I'm followed by thousands of people. I only follow 15 as of today. This might not be true forever, but I'm hyper selective about what influence they let into my mind. And, luckily the way that my creative energy works, I don't need a lot of external influences. I do just write a lot and have a lot of ideas. I largely pull inspiration from the conversations that I have with the people, face-to-face, offline friends that I have. But yeah, I'm very selective about what I let into my mind. If I'm at a friend's place and they're watching evening news, which doesn't really happen because I have friends that watch evening news, if that was a thing, or, got sat at a restaurant, there's evening news, I would move. Or I would find a way to get that out of my consciousness because just a whole bunch of like bullshit fear mongering, and why like plugging into that, even letting that like auditorily sink into your mind, for me, it's, it's the cognitive equivalent of eating fast food. You know it's bad for you, and there's some like sick little dopamine hit that we get from like, ooh, yeah, I want to hear about like the local murders so I can think I'm safer in the world by knowing about it. But it's like, it's not reality.
Yeah.
Tangent.
And then it is actually the dopamine hits. I mean, a lot of times when we read something, or even like hear a piece of gossip,
Yeah.
that dopamine comes out. They're like, oh, like, ooh, tell me more. Like, it's gonna be so juicy.
Yeah.
We actually don't realize that we're fucking ourselves over like that.
Yeah, it's like a quick, unhealthy hit. Just like you might get a rush within the first 1 to 2 minutes of smoking a cigarette. I've never smoked, so I can't really speak to this, but like you get an immediate hit, and then you feel like shit for like, the minutes or hours after. Like it's a high and then a crash.
Yeah, yeah. It's like junk food for the mind. One of the things that I see, actually, I don't think Instagram is that bad. Instagram's like got a good positive vibe on it right now. A lot of people are just posting their highlights, which is cool. I'm down with that. Awesome. You can post your vulnerabilities too. Awesome. I find that Facebook, quite honestly, like, you want, even if you want to avoid the news and you go on Facebook, you're still going to get the news.
Yeah.
Right. And you're also going to get we're living in a world where our private thoughts are actually our public thoughts now. Right. So a lot of the private thoughts that kind of surround you, say in the world of Facebook or even like in your own circle, if you really thought about it, you don't necessarily want to hear some of the thoughts that come out of other people's minds.
Nope.
And I actually find that it's better that way too, because the more actually you go on things like, let's just say, social media or even like the news, it actually builds up this secondhand judgment based on how people should actually live. And a lot of times that is actually incredibly divisive, because it makes us feel like we're apart from everyone else.
There's an us versus them mentality in it.
Us versus them, oh, I'm Chinese. Oh, that person is black. Oh, that person is Indian. And oh yeah, we're getting oppressed. And like the thing is if we actually realize that, one, man, only like the negative shit actually comes out in the news, probably something you don't really want to listen to on a regular basis. And two, guess what? Like, we're all on the same damn team, and it's called like the human race. And a lot of times when we make judgments on other people based on how they live or how they should live and how you feel they should act and how they should think, the more you're putting a box on how you feel like humanity should be, when in reality, we have to understand that we all have a different perception on how we see the world. Mm-hmm. Even they've even done studies where people don't even see the same colors. Like, I could see red, and another person would be like, "Nah, that's fuchsia, bro." Right? Yeah. And I think if you can be okay and understand this, then it gets you a little bit more, at least, empathetic. Mm-hmm. Is that the word? To everyone else. Which is not necessarily what's happening at the very moment. Yeah, and it's one of those double-edged swords that I see with social media, that I feel like if you're plugged into a lot of the fear-mongering bullshit news, there can be an erosion of your compassion, because you can only feel shitty for, or feel empathy, feel pain, feel compassion for people so many times until your mind's like, okay, I only have such, I have a finite well of compassion I can extend per day before I'm like, wow, there's a lot of pain and suffering in the world. That's one side. The other side of things is that I think that there is, especially as people, I might be in like biased circles because I'm a sex and intimacy and relationship coach, and a lot of my friends or colleagues worldwide are similar. And so when I had a newsfeed before I used the Kill Newsfeed app, there was a lot of vulnerability. Like I wasn't the only person like posting photos of myself crying when something bad was happening. Like, I was very open, and so were a lot of people that I know. And so for that reason, there was a lot of bonding and understanding and increased empathy of like, you're not alone, whatever your pain is, someone else is going through it at the same time. But yeah, there's so many pieces I could dig into on this. But yeah,
I also see social media as a bit of a, it's like money. It's a neutral entity. It's how you use it, how you relate to it. And for me, knowing that my life is about loving and contribution, it's an easy no-brainer for me to not have a news feed. And when someone, like this happened a couple times the last few weeks, when people will be like, they'll be saying, oh, blah, 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 and like the sad stuff in the world, and like they'll loosely reference like, oh, like the thing that happened in that city. And I'll be like, no, I literally have no idea. And like, and mean it. And
Yeah.
it's funny, like even with people that are like, good friends or decent acquaintances, like maybe half of them will have some pushback and be like, oh, like, shouldn't you be plugged into these world events? Like, shouldn't you know about this kind of stuff? It'll be like some mass shooting or some like murdery thing in a different country. And if my life is about voting with love constantly, does knowing about these things, does it sharpen my axe? Does it make me more effective? Or does it take away energy from me being a voice of love and positivity in the world? Does it really add to me, or does it even like mildly chip away at me and make me less effective? So yeah, like my vote is to just let the thousands of actions you do every day be the way that you vote. I see those votes as more important than like even voting in a provincial or federal election, compared to just letting your breath, letting your actions be your real-time moment to moment. Like that's the shit that matters, not like how abreast you are of international deaths.
Plug back into yourself, not into other people or other things. Like plug back into you.
Yeah.
And then once you start plugging back into you, then man, then things open up. Then you can become a little bit more rational about what's happening.
Yeah.
And about yourself as well. But yeah, it's stop plugging into anything else but yourself. And sometimes you gotta go on a journey where you're just like, actually, I think we talked. We saw this like thread come up, and one of my things was this guy was going through, some rough spot, and I was just like, bro, like leave
Yeah.
and be by yourself.
Unplug, be on vacation, like go into your heart, go inwards, stop doing so much, start being more.
Yeah, one of the things that almost gives me just like a good feeling of like, oh my God, this is so awesome, is just like a journal that is written and drawn in and has all these like marks on it, and it just looks messy, but it also has stick men, and these stick men are like, whatever it is, like when I see something like that and it's something that I created and I'm like, okay, this is me going into me, that actually gives me just like, oh God, like gives me the willies. It's good.
Yeah. And that makes
Yeah.
total sense to me because I see you as that. Like you are someone who is fully utilizing their gifts, fully utilizing their life, and also has, structured bullet point lists and stick figures. Like you retain your playfulness. You have this childlike charisma. You are that. It's like you, on many levels, you're probably seeing yourself in that used up journal being like, that is me. I am that.
I will actually say that I'm very thankful for Linda, which my girlfriend, because like we were talking about before, she actually influenced me in that way. So she's incredibly artistic, and I actually got her into journaling, and then I saw her journal. I was like, damn, that looks so good, because she was drawing flowers and like all this kind of stuff, and my journal was like just straight words,
just pure masculine, just like thought, self-reflection.
And then that was her influence. So that was her part of herself, like going into me, and I loved it. I was just like, once you start like drawing, and when you access that creative part of you, when you're always accessing that left brain side, that analytical side, and when you access the creative part of you, you're just like, God, it looks horrible, but I am so proud of this right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a force multiplier to like use all parts of yourself to live a life, that's total, that you're using your total self. You're not just quadrupling down on your, niche skill set or ability, because it's so dry. We're human beings. We're not meant to specialize to such an insane degree.
Well, that's why I find a lot of people are extremely imbalanced, especially high performers, like high achievers, incredibly imbalanced.
Yeah. they're 10 out of 10 in one, maybe two things, and then they're like 3 out of 10 in, five of the major life pillars.
Yeah, like they could be making $10 million a day, but they're like 50 pounds overweight, and they have a shitty relationship with their spouse. Or the thing is, I actually feel that life is meant to. It's not meant to be balanced the whole way through. It's not meant to be like a straight line. I find that I actually feel like balance is very malleable. Again, it's like it's kind of like how you went into your writing phase. You fucked everything else. I find that sometimes you have to do those things as well.
Totally.
And I find, but to live an optimized life, to actually live a life that you're just every single day, you're like, God damn it, this is like fucking awesome. You need to have that balance. You need to put work into your relationship. You definitely need to put work into your body. One of the other things I would say is on top of like the body thing is like accessing some part of like your warrior that you can bring out a little bit, whether it be through like, competing in like whatever, or actually I don't like competing in physique competitions. I hate it actually, but
Even competing in like a Spartan race or something that's more like challenging yourself among
doing
people.
martial art or something, right? And then also taking care of the spiritual, which I find spiritual to be just the knowing of self and understanding like where you are in this world and how you feel about this world, and understand and knowing that. And if you have a deep knowing of that, and you have on top of that maybe like a religious practice, if you practice that as well, balance is something to be sought after. I don't feel like going 100 in one area of your life and fucking everything else off in the other parts. I don't feel like that is going to make you feel awesome.
No, it's not sustainable long term. You can have that for a season or for a phase, but it has to be a short term thing because, yeah, there's no such thing as either keeping one thing 10 out of 10 forever or having 10 out of 10 across the board in multiple things. Like you have each one thrive for a while and you cycle, but yeah, there's no such thing as perfection.
I remember when, and actually you were there when Linda and I were kind of like first starting to
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah, I've met Dan's girlfriend. She's phenomenal. They are adorable together and really work well.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I fucked off my social circle for a big period of time
Right.
because I was just like, I want to know everything about you. I want to
Into
like,
the vortex. Yeah.
yeah, I want to be in this vortex with you, and I feel like there's just still so much to learn. So I actually kind of like went away from my social circle, and even my friends were like, "Oh yeah, you're chilling with your girl," but I'm like, yeah, I'm chilling with my girl because I felt like that was needed to put balance into that aspect of my life. And then now like things are rebalancing. I still have an amazing relationship with Linda, and now my social circle is like opening up again. And everything's always kind of like moving around, and what you feel inside of your heart that you have to put your effort into, fucking go and do that. And sometimes you have to be like, screw everything else. I'm just going to focus on this one aspect.
Yep.
Yeah.
So one of the catalysts for this call being set up is you had some questions for me that you wanted to dig into. So let's flip the script and have you lead into that, and I'll do my best to pack in all the dense value.
Awesome. So to set into context, I'm going back into writing, creating content, and going about it in a way where I can actually feel proud of it. So one thing I want to ask you, I find that everything is all based on daily habits, whatever it is. It's also based on a little bit of structure that you have in your day so you can get these habits done. Especially when it comes to writing. What is your process, and what is the process what are the things that you do daily? That's probably like the first thing that I want to know. What are the things that I have to do daily to make this a reality for myself? And also, and actually, what are some of the beliefs that you had to get rid of when you first started this journey for yourself? And lastly, how do you structure, peeling out this content, and how do you structure giving away this content, and how do you strategize how to get this content out to the mass, to the most amount of people? That's about like 4 or 5 questions in there.
Yeah, and I could literally spend an hour, at least an hour on each one of those.
4 hours.
So,
Good.
so let's see if I can answer each of those in like a few minutes each. So I'd say the furthest upstream question, what did I have to believe or let go of in order to start putting this stuff out there? Which also kind of ties into my intention of putting out writing or content in general, is for me, one of the biggest things that I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I feel like this is embedded in your bones already, is that, again, I really fell in love with contribution, that I thought I'm just going to give away as much as I can all the time, just be so overly generous that, on one side of the fence, if I build up a readership of 1 million people a month, which when I was starting day one, that sounded like a pipe dream. Like, no one can get to that. That's reserved for like elite bloggers. That idea that, okay, if and when that happens, even if like 0.0001% of those people ever turn into any kind of a customer or person that like directly supports my business, my venture, it'll still be so insanely worth it that there'll be like this embedded charity aspect of, I want people to come and read my articles, to use my content, even if they never turn to paying customers. Like, I am so 1,000,000% stoked on that. Like that for me had to come first, because again, to kind of use that person who sent me a message and said, oh, it's been 100 days and I'm not profitable. I wanted to just be like, why do you care about your profits? Like, shouldn't the love of writing or contribution carry you at all for the first like quarter of running your business? Like, for me, that was so never a piece of my mindset, that even now, one of the biggest things that I hear from a lot of our mutual entrepreneurial friends is people see my website and they're like, for the traffic that you're doing, you are severely under monetized. Like, how do you have no ads on your site? How do you have no, just there's more in their minds, there's more I could be doing to like squeeze dollars out of my readers. And that just has not been my intention at any point. Like, I'm totally fine under monetizing and just giving a fuck ton forever.
This actually reminds me of have you ever heard of the term Nishkama Karma?
What is it?
It's called Nishkama Karma. It was actually, I found it when I was reading this text called the Bhagavad Gita. And Nishkama Karma is essentially, I'm not going to go through the story, but Nishkama Karma is essentially giving away as much as you can without expecting anything in return. And that's the secret to life. That is the secret.
Yeah, I believe that so deeply. And even further to that, I think that plays into, this isn't a writing thing, but that plays into our social lives, that plays into our love lives. This idea that people are like, oh, I'm so starving for this thing. How do I get this thing? I'm like, you give it. Like, oh, but I don't have it to give. I need it before I can give it. I'm like, no, you give it and you'll get it. Like, it's that, oh, I wish there was more deep, intimate conversations in my friendships. Okay, cool, go there. I wish there was more love in my life. Be more loving. Like, people, they're like a beggar in their mind going to other beggars and be like, oh, but like, give me this thing that I don't have. It's like, first of all, you're lying to yourself. You do have it. You're just, you're being run by your fear. You're being run by your ego. You're being run by your mind, as opposed to your heart, which, as Don Miguel Ruiz in Mastery of Love talks about, is a magical kitchen that always has endless amounts of food that can give to everyone abundantly. It's there. It's inherent in us. And yeah, another piece is, when I started writing several hundred articles and people that were following me closely were seeing this, a lot of people that were usually self-employed, that have their own websites, that would frequently message me and ask, aren't you afraid that you're giving away too much? Like, what if you give away all the secret sauce, then no one wants to hire you? And again, because that wasn't my intention, I told them, like, if I have 1 million readers a month and 0 people are hiring me and people are still benefiting from the content, I still see that as a win. And I think that's, at least a lot of people that I talked to in the similar space, that's one of the biggest gaps that I see, is that I really do give a shit about contribution above all else. And if a business happens to like fall out of it, cool. I'm not, I'm the Tony Robbins, I'm the talent, I'm the star in my organization. I'm not the business mind, I'm not the strategy person, and I'm fine with that. Like, so yeah, I had to let go of any sense of like, ooh, I might give away too much,
Mm.
or that there's anything ever bad about being overly generous, even like foolishly generous in some people's eyes.
So how do you are you a free flow guy or are you a structure guy on a daily basis? And then how do you structure your days?
So it's a mix. I definitely know the times of day that I operate the best for different types of tasks.
Mm.
I find that most writers either do best early morning or late night. So, generally pre-sunrise or around sunrise and after sunset. I am 20 to 1 a morning person. I would say out of all the articles and books I've ever written, at least 92 95% has been written between 4 and 7 a.m. in my time zone. And I never set an alarm. This isn't like I don't force myself or will myself into it. When I'm on a good writing streak, I just naturally wake up, whether you call that early morning or in the middle of the night. And yeah, I wake up and I tap into this kind of what feels like underutilized creative energy, because there's all this energy in the city that isn't being used because most people are still passed out, as they should be for the majority of people. And yeah, I'll get up and I'll write for 1 to 3 hours, and I generally have like a small, medium, large list of like, okay, here's my brain dump text document where I put all of my thoughts, and then I'll like circle the best ones of that and copy and paste it into like the medium sized one. And these are the ones that, if this one has 100 ideas, this one will have 18. And then I'll take whichever one's the most exciting or appealing or activates me the most emotionally, that time that I'm in the chair or standing at my standing desk and doing writing. And I'll take that one and I'll put it into its own doc and say, this is like, this is my tunnel vision document that I'm working on. I'm only doing this. One habit that I adopted from Ryan Holiday is I'll frequently listen to the same pop song on repeat over and over, so it just turns into like a wall of noise, and I can just go into the zone and write it. But yeah, I'll write one piece at a time, and then I'll format that and release it everywhere.
Is it one piece a day?
It it depends. I do some writing every day. I don't necessarily I don't aim to finish one piece a day,
Mm.
and that might happen often, but for me it more comes in swells where over the course of a 7 day period I might have 3 days. So every day I get in the chair, I put some minutes of like, all right, brain, anything for me today? Just the check-in of what is there to squeeze out. And 3 days out of the week that I would still consider like writing sessions, I might go back and reshape a paragraph or two in an article that isn't quite finished yet, or I might only spend time on like the 100 idea list and just like adding a bunch of brain dump things that may or may not ever manifest into something finished. And then some days I might sit down and literally write 4 articles in one sitting that all just flow out of me, and I've written 10,000 words, in under like an hour, hour and a half. So I
Seems
think,
like a very intuitive process for you. But then
yeah,
your morning is very structured though. That's what I'm getting out of this.
yeah, I'll write for a couple hours and then I do calls, whether it's business calls or coaching calls, generally sometime between 8 a.m. and noon. So yeah, I'm a very morning person. In the afternoon, I'm off work, and I might shoot a little bit of video stuff, but I usually just play guitar or play frisbee with my friends or go to a movie or you know cuddle a girlfriend. Just do whatever life has.
How do you ever I only say this because I actually experience it. Do you ever feel guilt? Like when you're in the afternoon playing frisbee and you're having this amazing time and you're like, I should be doing something right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the so multiple things I can speak to here. Yes, early days when my business like first started to take off and it needed me less and less, and I could really get away with doing like 20 hours of work a month and have my business still function in a way that no one knew that I wasn't working the hours that I had been in my first couple months of like getting early momentum. There was definitely guilt around, and this was rooted in unhealed shame around, who am I to have a life like this? Why do I get to go and be one of the only people watching, the 1 o'clock movie, the matinee movie in a theater when most people are in their day jobs and blah blah. And ultimately, guilt is a it's not a useless emotion. No emotion's officially useless, but the real estate that we give it in our mind, it overstays its welcome very quickly. It can inform our actions, effectively, but if we're just using it to like whip ourselves through life or through self-development or through improvement, then it tires really quickly. So in terms of, do I feel guilty around having afternoons free? I used to. There was definitely that transitioning point, but now I feel like if anything, I've kind of swung the pendulum into something that more closely resembles entitlement, but not even that. Just a knowing or a deserving or a permission of, no, like I worked my face off for years, and for every month that I make a healthy 5-figure revenue by barely working, that's offsetting my first 12 months when I was doing like $1,000 a month and working my face off. So everything comes in balance, and yeah, I have let go of a lot of that guilt because it just wasn't productive.
Yeah, I still feel it. I mean, there would be a day I'd be playing beach volleyball, and my thing would be like, oh man, like, what if it crumbles down in the day? And then I just realized that, oh my God, like that, I have to. It just you just realize that you have a lot more work to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the work never ends, and also.
Yes.
On that piece, that is one thing that I feel like, thus far my journey is just an irreversible element of self-employment, is that idea that, sure, there are always threats, there are things that could crumble your business, several years of brand momentum doesn't just die overnight from one little perceived threat, but you're almost never 100% off when you work for yourself. And I don't even necessarily see that as bad. I can't remember if it was a Henry Ford quote or Thoreau, but someone had this quote, then paraphrasing, of the further in alignment you are with your life's gifts, the harder it is to distinguish between work and play. And I used to see that as like a bad thing or a potential threat to my health or mindset, but at a certain point, the fact that I can pull inspiration from a conversation with a close friend and have that turn into an article, I don't see that as like, oh, this is bad and I shouldn't do this. It's like, no, that just means I have an integrated life, and everything about my life is art. Whether it's me loving my friend through a recent breakup and like hugging him while he cries, or writing an article about a person I bumped into on the street and like had a good interaction with, like it's allowed to be that kind of enmeshed with itself, and that it's allowed to be shades of gray as opposed to black and white pendulum swings.
So a little bit more of a specific question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your editing process like? Yeah.
Mine is very.
Does each blog go through?
Yeah, mine is very minimal. Let's see, I don't know the exact number of articles, but something over 500 articles I've written. I would say maybe 50 of them I've gone back, and not gone back as in once they're published, but like written out like the one word vomit draft and then like edited them and made them more concise. Or in my first year of writing, when my writing confidence wasn't as high, I sent it to my editor, who was my mom at the time, who has a really good eye for, you met my mom, really good eye for grammar and spelling, and she would just like make sure that my punctuation and typos were fine and clean. But while I don't, and this might seem like counterintuitive or not make a ton of sense, but I don't consider myself a good writer in terms of technical abilities. I consider myself a good writer just because I just speak, I write like I speak, I write like a person who cares, and that connects with people emotionally. I know writers that are like phenomenal writers, and when I read their stuff, it's like poetry that penetrates my heart. And I'm like, wow, this is like clearly just stunning art. I don't see my writing as that necessarily, but one of the gifts that I do recognize is the rough draft that I do just free flow. I usually don't, like 90% of my articles I don't touch. Like I write them, I go, okay, if that's how it came out, that's how it came out. And my relationship to public speaking is the same. if I'm on a stage and I speak for, my allotted 25 minutes and, the words come out as they do, I can't go back and like live edit what I'm saying. So why should my writing be any different? That being said, some writers do write in a way that I do feel like needs to be like tightened up or shifted. And, many people could argue that my writing is also that way. I don't see my art that way. I word vomit and I let it out as is.
Well, I go on to say that you are creating art, and this art is actually changing a lot of people's lives. I personally love your writing style, because it's like I am talking to Jordan right now, but Jordan's not here. He's on the blog.
Yeah, it's very real and conversational and not heady because, I do write it in just real-time flow.
Yeah, and none of it is contrived whatsoever, and it's 100% Jordan. It's not taken from anywhere else, and that is the biggest thing that I respect about your writing is the fact that it's you, it's not anyone else. Well, actually, it's an amalgamation of just like everything coming in.
All my life, all the books I've read, all the people I've known.
Yeah.
And I feel like I see that as that's the epicenter of any art form. Is the only thing that people should concern themselves about is my essence shining through? And if not, then how am I getting in my own way, and how do I stop getting in my way?
Cool. If there were three things that someone needed to do on a daily basis to make having a blog a successful venture, or just to make a blog successful in their own right, what would those three things be?
The first one that I would say is something called the timeline exercise, which is basically whatever the person is you're trying to reach, whatever their life is about, do like at least an hour. You can make this 3 hours, you can make this a whole day, but at least an hour where you take out several clean sheets of paper and you basically map out what is the entire life cycle of this person who could potentially benefit from my help, from my writing, from my art, from my help. And so write down the major plot points of, well, they probably experienced this and this and this and this. Like, here are these 10 things, this is what happens to them. And then the more important part is you really go into like micro meditations, like basically just, proactive empathy. And at each of those stages, get into the mind of that person and think, what questions is this person asking themselves at each of these exact stages? And then reverse engineer which of these things can I most passionately, most authentically write about. And for me, that was a huge thing from day one, was what are all these stages of their life cycle? What is their mind saying? What is the pain point at each of these stages? And then how do I create the most valuable resources in the world for those exact things? So when they Google questions that would bring them to me, I show up in different search engines and they can find me and get the help that they need. So like the focal point of that is empathy matters. If you're not, being a writer to, especially like a nonfiction writer, if you're not in writing to help people, then what are you doing? And, something that you brought up at least 20 minutes ago now was that idea that, like the guy that was like, oh, it's been 100 days and meh. Yeah, like what is your intention? Because I've definitely met people who started websites, who started blogs, started businesses online, that their sole focus, or at least primary focus, was, oh, I want to live the laugh out lifestyle. I want to do this thing. And, I have judgments against those people. This is something that I'm still working on, but people that are like, that come into it with this self-serving mindset, I'm like, then why? Like people can feel that. People can feel you not caring enough or having your intention be off. So that's point number one, long story long. Second point I would say is sit daily. And again, whether you write standing or sitting, it just means, get your butt in the chair or get your butt or your feet in front of your journal or in front of your laptop. Like just carve out literally even 2 minutes every day where you slow down and go, okay, creative mind, what do you have for me today? Anything? And like just do some honest check-in. Some people say, have a minimum word count per day of like, oh, write at least 1,000 words a day, or write 2 or the artist way. Write your morning pages. Write 3 pages of like messy, free flowing thoughts, and that can work for people too. For me, it's always been an issue of not an issue, but the focus of just get in the chair. Just like give it any attention every day. And whether 10,000 words fall out or 20 words fall out, you've checked in with that piece of yourself.
It's like walking in the gym. It's like you don't have to do anything. All you gotta do is just like walk in the gym. You're there. Even if you step on the treadmill for like 5 minutes and you leave, you still walked in the gym. You still went into the arena. Yeah, the past actually, I've been doing my habits for like the past like 35 days. I set the thing of like, write 300 to 500 words. It could be anything. It doesn't matter what it is, but just write something. And this particular exercise has actually expanded over time because the more you actually practice, then the more you're accessing these deep parts of you that you would have that would be dormant unnecessarily. So it's just stepping into the arena and doing it every day. Yeah, it helps a lot. I would actually, on top of that, say, push yourself to share as much as possible. Share your stories, share your blogs, put it on Facebook, put it on Twitter, whatever it is. A lot of people actually stop right there. And that's what doesn't get your blog read at all. I think you started by just posting on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. Like I posted my stuff on my website, but day one I was like, hey, blog traffic, let's do this. And it was just like every article, even if it wasn't, especially early days, like when I was still finding my voice and figuring out what I actually enjoyed writing about to begin with. Because there's another common misconception. Like I wasn't a writer before. So I've been doing sex and relationship coaching full time for coming up on 8 years now. The first 4 years were all offline, face-to-face stuff, all coaching. There was no writing. I didn't write anything until 4.5 years ago when I started the online piece. And so I had a lot of kinks to work through of like, do you put the period outside of the quotation marks or inside quotation marks? Like detailed stuff. I was never a writer.
And you are, and
yeah, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Lie down versus lay down and all these different things. So yes, those 2 points. And then the third one, we've touched on consistency. I've touched on generosity. Yeah, I think the third point is like that's a good kind of bridge point that just check in with where fear is stopping you along your journey. And that is one common piece that I know people that will put up 40 blog posts on their website, but then they spend 99% of their time on creation and 1% of their time on marketing. Even marketing can have like a dirty or salesy context for a lot of people because, words are imperfect and that's just their nature. But to me, marketing is just this idea that there are people in the world that are currently in pain. And if I get my art in front of them, I might be able to help them alleviate their pain even 1%. And if that is true, then I have an obligation to get my work out to the world and be self-promoting. And even then, like I don't even see my art as mine. So it doesn't feel like self-promoting. It's just pushing out the words or ideas or love to cross more minds, to get into more hearts. So yeah, not allowing your denial of your fear run you, and sure, taking steps, but then still hiding. Like if you have this message in you, if you have these stories to tell, it is absolutely an obligation that rests on your shoulders to lovingly push your art out into the world so that you can help alleviate any pain or awaken any minds. There's just no reason not to.
Awesome. Those are the questions I had about writing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, Dan, go. This is the longest interview I've ever done.
Nice.
And I'm not surprised by that because it's very easy to talk to you. If people wanted to find you or work with you or talk to you or go deeper down the Dan Go rabbit hole, what are some things in the world, if there are any?
by the time this comes out, I have a new blog. It's just called dango.blog. And by the time this comes out, I'll have my first blog on it, and you can find me there, and you can find my writing there. And if you want to see my previous writing, I have dango.ninja, which I have like some pretty cool stuff on, and that's about it. You can add me on Facebook, Dango Fitness, find me there, and I'll probably be somewhere where Jordan is, most likely.
We'll be spooning somewhere in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I miss just being around you physically, and just us sharing spaces together. So yeah.
Yeah, but I guess it's been since last September when I was hanging out with you and Linda and your beautiful puppy and that whole fun week.
I'm gonna try to get Gio this. Actually gonna get Gio to send you the thing. Hopefully you come down to Toronto for that summit, and I'd love to see you. Linda and I and Bally would love to see you.
Awesome. And yeah, all the things that Dan mentioned, I'll link below in the show notes so you can find him wherever he is in perpetuity. Dan, thank you for sharing your beautiful mind and heart. I love you as a person, and it's always easy and fun to talk with you.
Same here. And thank you guys very much for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you.